Oh, we are back. Forgive my shitty background that I have here. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to MMA Court. Oh God, we got a bunch of things we got to go over. Trying to see if I can get some better lighting in here because it looks like dog shit. And there we are. Like I said, forgive the shitty background at the moment. This is all I got. So, we're going to talk about UFC 297. I am the judge. This is MMA Court. There was a million things that happened yesterday. Last night, I should say. This Sunday night. It is about 8:22 p.m. So whoever does tune in, hopefully you will engage in the discussion because there's a ton of controversy going around right now on what happened in the main event of UFC 297. But before we get there, we're going to start at the bottom of the card and we're going to work our way all the way up. So without further ado, let's start in the very beginning of the card. Okay, so Jimmy Flick. Jimmy Flick came in to the UFC off of the Contender Series. He was a very, very, very good fighter on the regional scene from where he is from. The guy has an unbelievable grappling skill set. And usually when he fights, if he does win, it is usually by submission. I believe his submission victory this past weekend was his 17th career win by submission. Now, we need to take something into consideration here with this fight is he was coming off of two knockout losses in a row, and I believe they were both in the first round. They were TKOs. They weren't, I don't believe, full knockouts. But the pressure was on because this was also the last fight of Jimmy Flick's contract with the UFC. And long story short, Jimmy Flick comes in, he snaps his two-fight losing streak, and he wins against Malcolm Gordon, a Canadian. As we know, they fought in Toronto, so the crowd was very much against Jimmy Flick. He came in and he ended up winning by submission. The first round, it was very close to being finished in the first round. Malcolm did do something very dumb, in my opinion. He went and he took Jimmy Flick down. And if you go on my other page with my brother, the Casual and the Connoisseur, that's where we do our MMA picks. I got every single fight correct except for one, which we will talk about. But this fight, not only did I have the winner correct, but I also had the way it was going to happen correct as well, which was Jimmy Flick winning by, you guessed it, submission. He almost won by, as he calls it, the Von Flick choke, which also is known as the Von Flue choke. Many people used to call it the St. Preux choke because Ovince St. Preux, I think, has the most wins by that choke in the UFC. And he almost got that in the first round, at the very end of the first round. Malcolm Gordon took him down and started to work the ground and pound. And if you're watching the fight, or if you know anything about Malcolm Gordon, he is susceptible to submissions. He did lose by submission to Muhammad Makayev not that long ago. I had a very strong feeling that Jimmy Flick was going to be able to do this because I figured that Malcolm was going to try and do the whole ground and pound approach because we saw what had happened to Jimmy Flick recently with his TKO losses. I don't think it was a good plan. And as we saw what happened, Jimmy Flick almost submits him in the first round. Second round comes out, and he ends up doing what I said. He comes and he submits Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon then takes off his gloves in the octagon. And I don't know if he retired or not. I hope he doesn't. The guy's very talented, and he also is very fun to watch. But big things on horizon for Jimmy Flick. Hopefully he gets back into the winning column a little bit more. One victory isn't enough. But Dana White did confirm in the post-fight press conference that that was Jimmy Flick's last fight on his contract, and he will be renewing his contract, which is terrific. No fight night bonus for Jimmy Flick this time. Sorry, buddy. The next fight. Now, if the police weren't called on Jasmine Jasudavicius after this fight, I would be surprised. And I'm totally joking. Jasmine Jasudavicius, another Canadian fighter. She was also my pick to win for this fight. She fought a girl. I don't even really remember her name. Let's actually look that up real quick, what her name was, because it wasn't even showing up on Google. And it's still not even there. This is the all right. Let's see. We'll go down onto the website. Priscilla Kohara. which she is a Brazilian fighter, and she had missed weight. I don't like when fighters miss weight. Many people don't like when fighters miss weight. And if you watch the fight, Jasmine Jasudavicius, she didn't like the fact that this girl missed weight either, and she took it out on her pretty extensively because if you actually watch the fight, Jasmine had to fight up a weight class. She had to fight at 135 when she normally fights at 125 because this girl just couldn't seem to make weight. Uh, After all was said and done, about 300 ground strikes later, compared to Priscilla's 4 strikes, I believe, that she landed throughout the entire fight, it ended up ending in the third round by submission. If you did watch this fight, and if you know anything about jiu-jitsu and or grappling, you would have noticed that the amount of openings that Jasmine had to finish the fight in the first round were pretty insane. The fight could have been finished very easily in the first round multiple times. The submissions were all there, especially the armbar. Had an arm choke. I mean, you name it, she was trying it. She had her in a darce one time, and I think she ended up finishing her with an anaconda choke in the third round. Fun fight. It was literally 15 minutes of just kind of a massacre. The amount of blood that came out of this girl, it was kind of tough to watch. I felt a little bad for her, but at the same time, Jasmine was mad because she didn't make weight, and she shared that with the I think it was DC who interviewed her at the end. And yeah, you shouldn't miss weight because if you miss weight and then the girl has a chance to beat the living crap out of you, that's what she's going to do, and that's what ended up happening. But otherwise, she did break a record for the most landed ground strikes in a 3-round fight. I believe for the bantamweight division, and that's not even her division. So pretty cool. That was fun to watch. You move forward to the next fight. Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson, a little bit of hype behind this guy when he first came in. I think he came in off the Contender Series, but he was fighting at lightweight, and this dude is gigantic. I think he's like 6'3", and fighting as a lightweight at 6'3", you would think would have its advantages, but when you're tall, lanky, and long like that, and you're fighting guys that are smaller than you, one, it seems though the guy was really struggling to make weight all the time. That's not good. That's always going to cause you to have problems by getting, every time you get hit, you got issues with your chin and so on and so forth. So outside of that, Sam Patterson came in as a welterweight this time. He had his first welterweight fight, and he fought Johan Lanessi. I don't know much about him. I know he is a Canadian fighter, and I do know that he, I believe, was coming off 2 losses in a row, one of which was to another fellow Canadian, Mike Mallet. And let me see. No, he didn't actually come off 2 losses. That was his one loss. But he has had a loss, a win, a loss. I'm sorry, a win, a loss, a win. It's very back and forth. Basically, it wasn't looking good for this guy, and he comes in, he fights Sam Patterson. Patterson ends it in the first round with a rear naked choke. It was impressive, although I will say that Sam Patterson does have the tendency, when he is backing up from strikes, his chin is a little bit up in the air, which is definitely making him susceptible from a guy clipping him with a right hook. Hopefully, this guy does a little bit better at welterweight. He seemed to have been struggling at 155, but now he's not, so that's good. We move down a little bit further. We're going to go with the next one. This fight was really exciting to me because I'm a big fan of Jillian Robertson. Everyone has their gripe with women's MMA right now for some reason. Anyone that goes on to any sort of social media that has anything with mixed martial arts right now, it seems as though Sean Strickland has put this thing out there where you got a bunch of people, and look, I love Sean Strickland. I love everything he says. He has his own opinions on women's MMA, and I agree with a lot of what he said, especially with the co-main event that just happened, which we will get to. But outside of that, how do I say this? Women's MMA is in a tough spot right now because you have so many people that want to hate anything that is female sport related. This is one of those this sport is the gray area for me because the women a lot of times they bring it. They fight and it's awesome. Sometimes the fights are better than the dudes. It does happen. It doesn't happen often though. But there are some fights that are great. I loved the Jasmine fight. I thought it was awesome. The co-main event, not so much. Um, but this fight with Jillian Robertson, um, she, I believe, lost her last fight. Ooh, let's actually take a look real quick. So Jillian Robertson, she did lose her. Yes, she did. So she lost her last fight to Tabitha Ricci. It was a unanimous decision loss. One of the main things was is Tabitha fought really, really smart when she fought Jillian. She would not let her take her down because everyone knows now if Jillian Robertson gets a hold of you, it's not good. The girl is extremely, extremely talented when it comes to grappling. She's very, very good, especially when she takes your back. You do not want to let that girl get a hold of you, especially getting on your back. Now she fought Pollyanna Viana, Pollyanna Viana. I think that's how you say her name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Um, very good Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt. Very, very good. But this is not Jiu Jitsu. This is fighting. There's a big difference. She did very, very good defending the submissions as the fight had gone on and progressed. But Jillian Robertson, if that girl is getting a hold of you on the ground, especially if she's in a dominant position, you are in trouble. You are in a lot of trouble. And trying to play the jiu-jitsu game with her is kind of stupid. Tabitha Ricci played it smart when she fought her and wouldn't even let her get near her. You have to keep your distance. Jillian's striking isn't the greatest. You have to stay away from her. You have to strike from a distance. And at the moments when Polly was doing that, she was showing a lot of success, in my opinion. Her strikes are very, very good. She seems to be very strong. She has a lot of pop on her strikes. And honestly, if it stayed on the feet, Pollyanna probably would have ended up knocking Jillian out. But that didn't happen. It went to the ground, and Jillian Robertson ends up winning again by submission. And it was, oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. That's me trying to, put it out into the atmosphere or the universe that I won my bet that she won by submission, but she didn't. I'm sorry. She actually won by TKO. Because as we just said, this isn't Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. This is fighting. This is MMA. So Jillian Robinson played the game. She played it right. She was going for submissions when she could, but she was also still striking and causing damage, which was extremely important. And she ended up winning by TKO, which is the second one, I believe, of her entire career. That doesn't happen very often. But that's what ended up happening. And it was fun. It was fun to watch. Call it what you want. If you don't like women's MMA, then it is what it is. You can have your own opinion. I think that that's silly. But then again, my argument gets completely debunked if you watch the co-main event of this card, which we will talk about. The next fight. This is when the controversy started. At least to me and to anyone that I was speaking to while these fights were going on when it comes to the judging. It seems as though every time we have a card in mixed martial arts, not just in the UFC, I'm sick of people fucking saying that shit, saying like, oh, well, Dana White is paying off the judges. It's the fucking commission. It has nothing to do with the promotion. Enough with the bullshit, please. It's fucking annoying. I hate these idiots that say shit and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Okay? So, this fight was a fight that already happened on the Contender Series. It was a messed up stoppage. I saw it. I don't think it should have been stopped. The ref stepped in too early. It was Serhi City. I think that's how you say his name. Again, another guy from Canada versus Ramon Tavares. Now, Ramon is the one who lost on the Contender Series to City. It was a bad stoppage. City ended up getting a contract. Brad did not. Brad came back. I'm sorry, not Brad. Oh my God, I'm calling him Brad Tavares. Ramon Tavares, he came back on the Contender Series and he won by knockout and proved that he should be in the UFC. And they couldn't help themselves. They had to rebook this fight. Well, they rebooked the fight and we got to see what happened. The fight was awesome. Now, if you watch the fight, City's face was very bloody and beaten up. I know this. I watched the fight. But it's not. Yes, it's about damage. We know this, okay? Yes, it is about damage. But if you use that rhetoric, then someone please explain to me how Corey Sandhagen didn't beat TJ Dillashaw. And the reasoning behind that is yes, it's a fight. Yes, it's MMA. But remember, it is a sport. It is a sport with rules, which means there's criteria that goes into the rule set and the judging and how everything is supposed to go. So, for anyone that watched the TJ Dillashaw fight versus Corey Sandhagen, yes, Corey won the fight, but TJ won the competition. That's the way I like to put it. Now, in this scenario, I would have said the same thing. I thought that Tavares definitely caused more damage with his strikes. Uh, he seemed to have landed a lot less. They seemed to be more impactful when he did land. But all of the other things that come into play with the sport, City did better. He was moving forward the whole time, pretty much. He seemed to have landed more strikes. It seemed that he was way less tired throughout the entire fight, even though that he had a bloody nose and he was all messed up. And even on the live odds with the betting, when the fight ended, Tavares was plus 500. Okay, that means he was a very heavy underdog. If that's the case, most people think that City won, and I believe if you go to the media or whatever, everyone across the board 100% thought that City won. No one thought that Tavares won that fight. I am one of those people that don't believe that he won that fight. It was an amazing fight, and I want to see another rematch. So we're gonna have a trilogy with that. But Tavares ended up winning. Of course, he was booed. Didn't have home field, whatever you want to call it, home field advantage. Not being a Canadian. But that was a great fight. I suggest everyone go and watch it because it was good. People don't understand the prelims is where it's at. It's where it's at. These are the fights that are free too. Like everyone complains about fighter pay and I'm not paying $80 for a pay per view or any of that bullshit. Okay, then go watch the prelims. Go watch the prelims. Oh well, those fights are gonna suck. Why? Why do they suck? Because you don't know who they are. Who the fuck are you? Like, why does that matter? You don't know their name. Well, many people didn't know who Conor McGregor was for a long time, and he became the biggest MMA superstar in the world. Everyone starts somewhere, and guess where they start? They start in the fucking prelims. This is how it works. Everyone starts somewhere, so you tend to see a lot of amazing fights on the prelims, especially considering these guys need to make a name for themselves. So they're going to go out there and they're going to put it all on the line, and girls. But anyway, that's besides the point. On to the next. I digress. So the next fight. This was interesting. This was a fun one too. Charles Jourdain. Air Jourdain. Another Canadian. Canadians did not have good luck, by the way, in this card. They did not have good luck. So Charles Jourdain fought a guy named Sean Woodson. Now, Sean has got to be one of the most bizarre-looking body types I've ever seen on any human being. It's very, very, very strange body type. The guy is, I think, 6'3". He is gigantic. Very long legs, long arms, very thin, but like a thick torso. It's short torso. Very amazing for kickboxing, though, and using his range. The guy is very, very, very good at striking. And honestly, his grappling looked pretty good too for what he was doing. Anytime that Charles Jourdain tried to get involved and actually, pursue the grappling and try and take him down, it really wasn't happening. And there was a couple times that Sean even shot on him. I thought Sean won the entire fight, no question. I think everyone thought that, including Charles Jourdain and Sean Woodson. And then at the end of the fight, Bruce Buffer announces the winner and says, Sean Woodson. And for some reason, when he said Sean, everyone thought that he said Charles. Charles raises his hands up. You know what? No, scratch that. It wasn't just Charles. The ref is the one who is at fault here because he raised Charles Jourdain's hand. So, and then it sounded kind of like Charles, and then everyone cheered for Charles Jourdain, and he was like stunned that he won. He was so happy, and even Sean was like, "Well, it is what it is." It is. And then DC comes in, he's like, "Bro, you won the fight. You won the fight. Where are you going? What is happening here?" And then Bruce is looking around. He's even confused. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and it's a whole big debacle. And basically, Sean Woodson won the fight, and Charles Jourdain thought he did. Now, I felt horrible because I'm like, imagine being Charles Jourdain in that moment. You think you lost the fight, and then you think you won the fight, and then that is immediately just stripped out from under you, and then you actually lost the fucking fight. Another bad night for Canadians. Weird. Really, really weird. And that actually all was on the ref. The ref fucked that up. It was not good. The next one. Oh my god, man. Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield. This was such a good fight. It was such a good fight. You know what I mean? Brad Katona got a lot of flack for his shenanigans, let's call it, when he was on the Ultimate Fighter with Chandler and McGregor. And I will say, I mean, he was. I don't know if this is how he really is, but he really didn't. He really came off as like a whiny little prick. Um, but the guy is extremely talented. I mean, I every time someone asks me like, "Give me a good fight to watch," I always now specific. I mean, there's millions of fights, but I tell people now like a recent one. I always say like, go back and watch Brad Katona fight his last fight, the Ultimate Fighter finale. Let me see. I always forget the guy's name that he fought. Gibson, Cody Gibson. I always say it. I was like, listen, if you want to see an amazing fight, 3 rounds, it was absolutely insane. It did go to a decision. It was one of the best fights I've ever seen. Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson. Those guys beat the living crap out of each other. It was incredible. And Cody Gibson looked like he was getting the better of Brad in the beginning of the fight. And then Brad he digs down and he just pulls this shit out and turns it up. And then he ends up winning. It did not happen that way in this fight, though. It did not. Did not happen that way. Brad Katona, it was a very, very close fight in my opinion. But Garrett Armfield, excuse me, Garrett looked good. Garrett looked good. I mean, there were a couple moments where he seemed like halfway through the round, he seems to like slow down and he gets tired, but I mean, he looked really good. It was a great fight. Another one that I highly recommend. People go and watch these fights. And then we move on to this was probably one of the more lackluster fights of the evening, which again involved men, not women. Go figure. This was the first fight on the main card. Arnold Allen versus Mavsar Ivalov. Now, Mavsar has been getting so much flack, apparently, and I kind of think rightfully so. And he gets mad because everyone's calling me oh, I'm a decision fighter. I'm a decision fighter. Obviously, he doesn't sound like this because he's Russian and doesn't speak good English. But then again, dude, you won another fight by decision. That's 8 fights in the UFC. Every single one of them has been by decision. And it's not like they're super, super exciting fights. He's winning, and he's winning convincingly against everyone because, again, he's good at everything. He's really, really good at striking, and he's really, really good at wrestling and grappling. But this fight was very interesting because of the sheer fact of this guy tried to game the system, and it worked. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy about some of the rules when it comes to mixed martial arts. This rule needs to be eliminated. It is complete and utter fucking bullshit. When your hand is down on the mat, depending on what state you're in, it has to be either one hand or two hands, but from what I know, it needs to be weight bearing, meaning like you're putting weight on it and you're on your hand or hands. Not I'm in a compromised position and I'm about to be kneed in the fucking face, so I'm just going to put my hand down so I can game the system so this guy who's fighting me can't knee me in the face. Now, in the midst of this, that's what Mobstar was doing. He was in a position, and Arnold Allen kneed him in the face. But when he did knee him, if you watch the replay, he was lifting Mobstar up, and his hand was leaving the ground, and then he was kneeing him. That is 100% legal. That was legal. He landed multiple knees, and I believe the last one, yes, the hand was down, but it wasn't weight bearing, and he was trying to game the system. And Mark Goddard steps in yet again, and he stops the fight and gives Arnold Allen a warning. Meanwhile, this gives Mavsar a rest. He's bleeding and everything. This should have been ruled 100% a TKO. And Arnold Allen should have won that fight. And Mavsar should not be 18-0. He should be 17-1. That is the facts, and that is what happened. If someone shows me proof otherwise that it should have happened a different way, please show it to me. But I didn't see it. Outside of that, you go a little bit further. Chris Curtis fought Marc-Andre Barrial. I mean, it was a good fight. There's not much for me to say. Chris Curtis looked really good. So did Marc-Andre. It was back and forth. I liked it. It was good. It was fun. Now, Neil Magny. This guy it's every time people think that, like, I got into an argument with someone. I don't even know why I get in arguments with people anymore, but they were, like, oh, someone needs to ask why the hell Neil Magny's still even on the UFC roster. Why is he on the UFC roster? I don't know, because he has the most wins in welterweight history, in UFC welterweight history. He passed up GSP's record on that. And every time this guy is like a 3-1 underdog, he seems to somehow come back and fucking win. Another perfect example, Mike Malott, again, another Canadian. They did not have good luck in Toronto. Mike Malott was winning the fight. He was going to win the fight. And then it seemed at the end, he just seemed to have gotten gassed out or whatever. Neil Magny ends up getting on top of him and ends up winning by TKO. And it was spectacular. Now, I picked Mike Malott. That was the only fight that I had lost on my betting picks on the Casual and Connoisseur. I had Mike Malott winning by submission because he seems to submit everybody. And I know Neil Magny has been susceptible to submissions. And that did not happen. Neil Magny wins. And not only does he wins by TKO. That doesn't happen very often either for Neil Magny. It was very, very impressive. And Neil Magny needs to get a little bit more respect from people. Oh, man. Let's see. So now we move on to the co-main event. Now, listen, man. The co-main event. How do I say this without sounding absolutely ridiculously sexist? I like women's MMA. I like it a lot. I did not like that fight at all. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're women. It has to do with the fact that the fight sucked. Plain and simple. It was not a fun fight to watch. I have nothing against Raquel Pennington. I think she's very, very good at what she does. She's a great fighter, but it just wasn't exciting at all. It was a terrible, terrible fight. It was a 5-round decision, which, if you looked at my picks, that's exactly the way I had set it up. That's exactly the way that I placed my pick. It was Raquel Pennington by decision. I knew exactly what she was going to do. She was going to clinch. She was going to. It wasn't a fun fight. It wasn't a fun fight. Silva was way out of her league with the whole thing for the sheer fact of Raquel Pennington even said in the build-up, like, who have you beaten? Who have you beaten? The one person that she beat she was able to cinch up a submission against Holly Holm. Holly Holm is incredible, yes, but we need to address the fact that Holly Holm is in her 40s now. It is not the same. She still looks great and everything like that, but she is not the same fighter. And it's going to get progressively worse with age. It happens to everyone. It's father time. It just happens. But Silva really hasn't beaten anybody, man. She beat Lena Landsberg before that. And there was another girl, I think, who was in her 40s, who I think ended up retiring after that. There really wasn't any competition. And now, Raquel Pennington is the 135-pound champ. And now they're talking about her fighting Juliana Pena. Oh God. It's hard for people to get excited for a fight like that, especially after watching how Raquel Pennington fought in this fight and how she fights in all of her fights. It's not exactly exciting. And then you have her fighting Juliana Pena. And Juliana Pena now, it's like she has taken this weird villain character to a level of cringe that is worse than Henry Cejudo, worse than like the antics that Colby does and all that stuff. Like it's just so fucking ridiculous. The fact that this girl has said that Amanda Nunes ran from her. Meanwhile, Amanda Nunes, I think, beat her like 50-43 or something like that in their last fight. And then she's saying that she like, oh, I almost had her. Like, no, you didn't. Like, what? Like, what? Who's telling you this? Like, come on. Like, you have to come back to reality at some point. It's ridiculous. And she talked her way into the first Nunez fight, and she won, which I was stunned by. But I mean, it was pretty obvious what we saw. Like, Amanda Nunes was looking past her. I mean, this shit happens. I mean, George St. Pierre, it's I don't want to say he looked past Matt Sarah, but like he openly said that was the one time I went into a fight and I wasn't scared the night before, and I ended up getting knocked out, and I learned my lesson. But it's just now, what's going to happen at 135 pounds for the females now? You have a champion that is extremely lackluster and boring. But like, who's on the come up now? Who? Juliana Pena, and then what? Misha Tate? Like, I mean, what year are we living in right now? You know what I mean? Like I hate to say it, but Amanda Nunes. A lot of people complain like, oh, it's not fun to watch because she just demolishes everybody. But at least she was finishing people. She was finishing the other fighters, and it was exciting to watch her beat the living crap out of people. But like now, like what are we gonna get at 135? Like outside of like what is Holly Holm gonna win a couple fights and then she fights for the belt again? Like who is there at 135 pounds right now? Who is on the come up? Someone please tell me because I don't know. Is this the end of the 135-pound division for females? It's not looking too good. They put so much stock into Aldana, which I don't understand the fucking hype with this woman. I don't get it. Just because she's Mexican, a Mexican fighter, everyone at the UFC is like creaming themselves over this because she's got good boxing or whatever. But like, look at what Amanda Nunes did to her. Like that was as bad of a beating, like as I've seen her do to everybody. Like it's so like I mean, who's at 135? Who? We got Aldana, Raquel Pennington, Juliana Pena, and like Holly Holm. Like that's like the same four frigging girls again. Like what is going to happen at 135? It's not looking good. I don't like it. But then the main event, Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. I thought the fight was amazing. I thought it was a good fight. I think it was very close. You have people crying that it was a fucking robbery. It was not a robbery at all. Like, it was not a robbery. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, I understand, like, Dana said he thought that Sean Strickland won or whatever. I don't think he did. I just don't. And then there's talk about, Dricus ended up hitting him with a headbutt or something like that. And that's what opened up Sean Strickland's eye. I thought it was a right cross that hit him that opened the eye. I could have swore they played a replay and then we all got to see it and everything like that. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like a right cross. And now everyone's saying, like, oh, well, if he didn't headbutt him, then Sean would have won. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, no. Like, Sean was bloody, yeah, but, like, that's not why he lost the fight. And this is why I go back to saying, like, Dricus won the sport. I mean, I'm not saying that Sean won the fight, but Dricus won the sport. But like, Dricus was more dynamic. Sean was boxing. He was boxing. You know what I mean? He threw some kicks, whatever. He was checking kicks pretty well and everything like that. But Dricus was mixing it up. It wasn't just a jab. It wasn't just a cross. It was a jab. It was a cross. It was a leg kick. It was a high kick. It was a body kick. They were throwing a couple takedown. I think there was like he took him down 6 times and all that stuff. Like Dricus mixed it up. It was a great fight. It was fantastic. I don't understand how people just keep every time there's a close fight, people call it a robbery. Actually, I do know why. I know why people call it a robbery because so many people are into gambling now and they get so fucking butthurt when they lose that they feel as though they need to just justify to everyone on social media that oh, it was a robbery. It was a robbery. Oh, Sean got robbed. Anyone knows that. And then you have a bunch of stupid ass people that talk crap about Dricus with this whole thing about him being from Africa. It's like, oh, he's not African and he's not African. I'm like, oh, God, like what are we doing here? He's from Africa. He was born in Africa and raised in Africa. Just because he doesn't have black skin doesn't mean that he is not African. First of all, Africa is a continent. Okay? South Africa, the Republic of South Africa, I believe it's called, is a country. He is from a country in Africa. Not all Africans are black skinned. There is also white people that live there too. Maybe someone needs to open a fucking book at some point and really understand that. And outside of that, all the things that Dricus had said in the past were true. Everything he said was true. He said, I'm going to become the first ever born, raised, and still fighting out of Africa. I'm going to be the first champion. Everything he said was factually true. Everybody else that was originally from Africa or born in Africa or is African don't meet any of those qualifications that he said. He didn't say he was more African than so and so or this. He didn't say that someone wasn't African. He didn't say that. And then people took the race baiting stuff and ran with it. This is one of the things that I can't stand about Israel Adesanya, is because that's the route he went. But anyway, Dricus won. Sean was not robbed. But there is one thing that I don't like. I don't like now, and I called this before. I knew that the main event for UFC 300 was probably going to be the winner of this main event with someone. I know they're setting it up for Izzy to come back, which I don't like because Izzy has headlined a lot of cards, and a lot of them, they suck. They suck. The fucking Yoel Romero fight. That was one of the worst fights I had ever seen. It was not good. It was not fun to watch. It was not good. It was terrible. There were a lot of fights where Izzy had done that. Sean Strickland beat the living crap out of Israel Adesanya in his last fight. Why does Izzy get another title shot after losing to Sean Strickland? Is it just because of the fact that Dricus and him had that spat with each other? Maybe. I think that's stupid. Dana was asked about this, talking about a rematch between Sean Strickland and Dricus, and he said, we're not really looking at a rematch right now, which I think is ridiculous because the fight was excellent. It was very entertaining. They broke a bunch of records with the gates. Everyone loves Sean Strickland. He is clearly a superstar now. He can bring in a lot of money. He is a draw. But they want to give the shot back to Izzy. It's very obvious what they're doing. So it's probably going to be UFC 300. Dricus Du Plessis defends the 185-pound belt against Israel Adesanya. I don't agree with it. I don't like that fight. It doesn't really excite me. It just doesn't. I think Sean Strickland should get the rematch personally. Now everyone's going to say, oh, well, why should Sean get the rematch? He didn't even defend the belt once or whatever. But at least it was a good fight. Sean demolished Izzy in their last fight. He demolished him. It was not close. Sean won 4 out of 5 rounds. This fight was very, very close between him and Dricus. Could have went either way. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. There's a lot of guys at 185 that are coming up that could fight Dricus, but I thought Sean should get the shot. And honestly, if it's not Sean, I wouldn't mind seeing Dricus fight Jared Cannonier. I think Jared deserves it. Jared should get a shot over Izzy. 100%. That's what I think. But anyway. But that's it. That was UFC 297, everybody. We went over the whole card. We went over all the fights and everything like that. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope that everyone that watched it did. And I hope anyone that comes in on this live stream or ever watches it for that matter, because I've pretty much just been talking to myself for the past 45 minutes. Let me know what you think. Comment, message me. Go on to my Instagram page. It's at MMA.court. I have a new TikTok now, which is also MMA Court. I also have another channel called The Casual and the Connoisseur. Casual __ connoisseur. You can find us on Instagram. You can also find us on TikTok. Casual __ connoisseur. That's where we do all of our MMA picks when it comes to betting and things like that, on what we're going to bet on and what we're going to do. We're not betting millions of dollars. We're betting a few bucks. It's nothing crazy. But that's what we do. There's also going to be a lot of funny content on there. My brother is a very, very, very funny guy, and we like to do a lot of fun things on there. But this is where we like to do the long-form discussions and everything like that. We got to do it on the lives and everything like that. I am going live 3 times a week to start. I'm going to do this whether people are watching or not. And if you're not watching this and you never do watch it, oh well, it is what it is. But We're going to keep doing this at least 3 times a week. Tune in to MMA Court. Court is now adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you on the next live.